Afternoon, everyone. Can I welcome you to this afternoon's meeting? First, a bit of housekeeping. There's a pair of glasses that were left outside. Whether these belong to anyone, you may want. I'll leave them here if you want to come and collect them. I'll bring them over in a second. Okay. The first item on our agenda for the meeting today is the election of chairperson. Can I please call for nominations for that post? Councillor Bick.
Could I nominate Councillor Simon Smith, please?
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that nomination, please? Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Any further nominations? Can I ask those in favour of the election of Councillor Smith as Chair of the Joint Assembly? Please show. Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Just to confirm, any against or abstentions? Thank you. Can I therefore declare Councillor Smith appointed Chair?
Thank you. Can I call for nominations for the position of Vice Chairperson of the Joint Assembly, please?
I would like to nominate Councillor Bick, please.
And do we have a seconder? Thank you.
Sorry, I will second Councillor Bick.
Are there any further nominations? So can I ask people to vote in favour or against? Thank you. So that's, I think that was unanimous. Okay, thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention, thank you. So, it's already here. Councillor Bick is duly appointed the Vice Chair. Thank you. So I'd like to thank you for electing me as Chair of the Joint Assembly, but before I start the meeting, I wish to thank Councillor Bick for his many years of service as the Chair. It's so many years, he actually can't remember how many. He served 2 terms. He genuinely couldn't answer that question. As the debates have ebbed and flowed on many subjects across the GCP schemes, Councillor Bick has been a well-informed and reasoned voice, gently steering the Assembly towards consensus and recommendations to the board. So subtle is his skill, I've often been left thinking, where did that consensus come from? And I just put it down to his genius. So I look forward to working with you, Tim, as Vice Chair, and we have much work to do in the coming year. I wish also to recognise and thank retiring members of the Assembly for their service. From the City Council, Councillor Katie Thornborough, and from the County Council, Claire Daunton, Neil Shaler and Graham Wilson. Thank you to you all. Before we start proceedings, I wish to remind the public that members of the Assembly have been chosen by their peers to not just represent their own organisations, whether it be from the 3 councils, the City, South Cambs, County, Education and Business, but to represent communities and businesses of Greater Cambridge. The Assembly scrutinises and advises the GCP Board by hearing competing voices from a wide range of interest groups, examining reports and recommendations presented by the officers to meet the objectives set out in the City deal. Therefore, transport to ensure the vital infrastructure improvements required to enable delivery of new homes and jobs identified in the local plan, to support young people to gain the skills they need to fulfil their aspirations, to be a test bed for technology which can transform the way we travel, and in housing to bring forward development of exception sites for affordable homes. On Histon, Milton and Cowley Road, you see people going about their lives, getting to where they want to be because of the GCP. People have better choices in how they travel, whether it's on foot, bike, bus, car or horse, that they can do more safely because of the GCP. The Chisholm Trail is used by thousands of people, whether they're going to watch football, walk their dog, teach their children to ride a bike, go to work, because of the GCP. At this meeting, we're going to receive reports on Waterbeach Railway Station, and Barton Greenway, one of the 12 greenways that will provide 150 kilometres of routes for active travel. To sum up, the GCP is fulfilling a vital role in the continued success of Greater Cambridge as a globally competitive region for education, research, life sciences and technology, a place for better life chances in skills and jobs, more homes and sustainable transport options. I wish now to welcome new members of the Assembly. Could County Councillors Elisa Mancini, Ian Manning and Chris Poulton please introduce themselves? And after that, all other members of the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here. I come from having served a term on the board last 4 years, which, you know, has made it very hard for me to leave. So here I am again.
It appears we've got Councillor Poulton sent his apologies. Councillor Tutala is going to be late. Councillor Ian Manning is not yet present. So could other members of the Assembly please introduce yourselves, starting with Councillor Annika Osborne, please. Thank you.
I'm Councillor Annika Osborne. I've been with the GCP now for 2 years, so come back in to help out.
My name is Nitin Patel. I'm part of the Combined Authorities Business Board.
So Heather Williams, I represent the Mordens Ward and South Cambridgeshire District Council, and I've been on the GCP for over 5 years now, I think.
Hello, Christopher Walkinshaw, one of the business representatives, been proud to work with the team on the GCP Joint Assembly for a few years now. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Claire Ruskin. I have been representing businesses and people across the region since GCP started. So probably 15 years? 15 years, yep.
Hello, my name's Paul Bearpark. I am Ward Councillor for Milton and Waterbeach Ward from the District Council, and I've been on the GCP for 3 years, I think, since 2022.
Yeah, as the chair said, I've been a member of the Assembly forever. I was originally involved in negotiating the city deal, which is the thing that we're implementing. I represent the city centre on Cambridge City Council.
And I'm City Councillor Simon Smith. I represent Castle Ward, and I've been on the GCP Joint Assembly for 4 years. Thank you. Item is, are there any apologies of absence received?
Thank you, Chair. There are apologies from Councillor Poulton.
Okay, thank you. So move to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. You can declare your interest now or later in the meeting at the start of the relevant agenda item. So if there are any declarations, please let me know. Okay, so Heather first, please.
Just in relation to the Waterbeach Railway Station, because I sit on the planning committee in South Cambs, obviously I was one of the decision makers there, so always best to be upfront and honest about these things.
Councillor.
So I am, as I mentioned, I'm District Councillor of Milton and Waterbeach. We're discussing Waterbeach Railway Station. I know we don't really need to declare that as an interest, but I am a resident of Waterbeach and obviously affected by what the move of the Waterbeach Railway Station, similarly to many other residents of Waterbeach.
Could just now go through the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 26. Can I just confirm, can you just confirm the accuracy of those minutes? And anybody who wants to make any, propose any amendments? Claire.
I believe the minutes are accurate, and I would just like to put on record that they were a very good set of meeting minutes with, I think, only one typo in, which is a record. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to have to help me this is go through. So can we confirm there's an accurate record of the meeting so they can be signed? Thank you very much. Okay. So we now move to questions from members of the public. There are 7 public questions. There are 4 on item 9, Waterbeach Railway Station, and 3 on item 10. These have been published on the website and they've been sent to members of the Joint Assembly. And we'll ask the people who've submitted the questions to speak for 3 minutes when the agenda items come up later on the agenda. So I just moved on into agenda item 7, petitions, and no petitions have been received. So we now turn to the quarterly progress report, pages 29 to 68 of your pack, and I'm going to invite Niamh Matthews to introduce this item, but before she does so, she's got a very important announcement to make.
Thank you, Chair. This paper for actually everyone here, I think has seen this before, but we're in the start of a new cycle. So normally what this paper does, you'll see it each time you meet, and it will update you on progress across the programme. Sometimes we'll ask you for a view on a specific thing. This time we're not asking you for a view on something specific, but what it would be good to share is in section 3, we refer to the GCP Gateway Review. We have today had a letter from MHCLG to tell us that we have been successful in passing the Gateway Review process. So that we've been waiting for that now for some time. So really, hopefully, excellent news, and it demonstrates all the really, really hard work and effort that's been put into this over the last near decade now. So wanted to share that with you as it's kind of hot off the press.
Could you just explain exactly what that means for everybody's benefit?
Yeah, sure. So the way that this particular deal is set up is that tranches of funding come in kind of stages. And we had a Gateway Review 5.5–6 years ago, which tested us on the first kind of period of the deal, and we successfully passed that, and that unlocks some cash. Now that we have passed this second Gateway Review, our final tranche of funding will be unlocked. So it's an endorsement of all the work that's gone on, and actually confidence from government that they're happy with the way that our decisions are being made and that our programme's being operated.
You didn't actually mention how many dollars this is.
So we have received in the bank the first tranche of the final tranche. So there's 40 million in the bank today, and we expect that to continue across the next 5 years.
And the total bit is extracting
the total overall sum that government have committed to is 500 million.
Very important news. It's going to secure the investment we need to deliver the infrastructure that's planned and proposed. So on behalf of everybody, I'm sure you'll want me to join in congratulating the team for going through that gateway. It was a formidable amount of work, and they've been very patient in waiting for the outcome. So congratulations. Well done. Thank you. This is just going to make a significant difference to our lives in Greater Cambridge, so that's brilliant news. Nick, can you just get on with the business then? Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. So there's nothing specific I want to draw the Joint Assembly's attention to in this particular report, other than what I've just said. I think you're going to go through it in kind of stages. So I'm happy to pick up any queries or questions that any members have through that process, if that's okay with you, Chair.
We've got the transport work stream. Anybody want to raise any questions on that? So I've got Annika and then Heather. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My question was regarding the delivery overview. With the forecasting dates, you list the original target completion dates for projects, revised dates and completion dates for the whole project. Regarding these delivery dates, and I'm going to be using St Ives Greenway just because it's in my ward, just as an example, but the question does apply across all of the greenways. How are the timescales for delivery being managed to ensure that delays don't impact the completion too much? For example, on the Oakington to Cottenham Greenway, again, the report states we need to reach landowner agreement. This has been the case for a while, for a number of years, as I understand it. And the original completion forecast was 2023. It was then changed to 2024. It's currently 2026, but I can't see that anything has substantially changed. Are the issues being addressed robustly and as quickly as possible so that these delays don't inevitably impact deliverability and cost? And at what point do you look, for example, for different routes, and what mitigation plans are in place for continued delays in delivery?
I'm going to defer to my colleague.
So thank you very much for the question. Clearly, with each of the greenways, there are multiple landowners that we are negotiating with, and Oakington to Cottenham, especially on the St Ives Greenway, has been a very complicated scheme. There is approximately, I think, 13 or 14 landowners from the top of my head, of which we have reached a pretty good place with every single one except for one. Which puts us in, a position where we're very close, but not quite where we need to be. And, for each scheme, there is a different specific story. In terms of keeping an eye on monitoring it across the whole programme, we have, regular project boards where the project manager is expected to provide updates, and that feeds all the way up to this report that you see in front of you. And we're quite happy to take kind of scheme-specific, give scheme-specific briefings to give you more detailed updates on a kind of scheme-by-scheme basis. So I'm happy to ask the project manager on that scheme to give you a specific update on it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, when you're referring to the landowners, we appreciate that that's an issue across the board. I just know on this specific one, it's been a continued issue for a number of years, and I'm just worried that we're getting stuck, and we've only got a certain amount of time now to make sure that these projects are delivered, and I think things need to be done a bit more robustly, potentially.
So we are taking legal advice on what steps to take next in terms of specific cases. And again, I don't want to go into detail in this forum, but very happy to arrange separate briefings on what those measures are.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got two things, one of which in relation, before I start, I just want to say it's of no surprise that I don't always agree with how the GCP is spending its money, but I do respect the work that officers have done to get through that review, and I do congratulate them on that bit. So I just wanted to note that, even if I do disagree where the money goes. In relation to the busways, so my first of 2 points, Chair, we now have seen the outcomes of the inquiries in relation to the busway that's currently in use, and the sort of changes that need to be made for public safety and the safety of all users. And I think it's something that is very sobering of what has happened and when those reports come through. And I think it's something that we need to really make sure we take note of and lessons be learned. Otherwise, we are not really seeing through. And I'm sure the families involved would want us to bear in mind what has happened. So one of the outcomes was in relation to fencing. I'm very aware, as we all are, that we are over-programmed. We have some more money, which is great, but we don't currently have the money for everything we've got. So just wondering what changes are proposed to incorporate that busway safety that has come out of the inquiry, and how that impacts on our budgets or potential delivery. I think it's really important from a scrutiny point of view that we ask officers. That might be, because I appreciate the inquiry wasn't that long ago, it might be that it takes time, but I think it's right that we scrutinise the documents in that way, and perhaps, Chair, have something come back to us about busway safety in light and in response to the inquiry for the projects going forward. The second question, Chair, Now, you'll see on the page 33 at the bottom, it does refer to all the greenways. I am aware, and I appreciate that the question has been sort of not allowed, so I won't read the questions. I do respect that it's not been allowed. But I would like to raise the point of we talked about governance, and actually the Gateway Review and governance is an important part of it. To anybody reading this agenda, they see that greenway in the quarterly progress report, it is on the agenda. We as councillors could ask questions about any of these greenways. In fact, we've had a question about a greenway, so it is on the agenda. And yet that is the reason that was given, was it wasn't on the agenda. Now, I appreciate everything is in this quarterly progress report, in which case we either need to be flexible when these things come forward, or we need to be very clear and maybe look at our public speaking protocols about questions not on the quarterly progress, because we need to make sure we have consistency if questions are being refused. And it worries me, Chair, that we've obviously had a situation where there has been whatever people's views on the Greenway and that section, there has been a big breakdown of trust and a big breakdown of relations with that parish. And I fear that we need to find a way, as an assembly, as a GCP, of not going into sort of battle and war with residents. We need to bring them back into the conversation, even if we disagree with them. And I fear that, from their point of view, they see it on the agenda and then it's refused because it's not on the agenda. That's not going to help with continued relations. So what can we do to resolve that issue, Chair?
Well, I think Wilma will explain the protocol. It's very clear, right? This is not a matter for decision today. But Wilma, please, can you just explain?
Chair, yes, if I could explain. The reason given for refusal was not because it wasn't on the agenda. It was because the question did not relate to a matter on which members were being asked to reach a decision. And the first bullet point, if you refer to page 27 of your agenda pack, which sets out the agreed public question protocol, the first bullet point in red does actually make it clear that the question should relate to matters for decision. And that relates to the fact that those are the key elements of the discussion that the Joint Assembly are going to have. So that is the distinction.
So your first point is a very important one. And so who's going to answer that, please?
Just to pick up on that second point, I think the point is well made about the need to re-engage with the parish, and that will be happening. Obviously, we've taken a step through a process, and we need to review that and decide on next steps. So that will be happening to provide that reassurance. As the Chair says, your point on busways is entirely right. The busway safety is assessed and reviewed at each stage of scheme development, and so you can be assured that we are working very closely with county colleagues, county council colleagues even, at every stage of the development process. At every stage of the development process, apologies, there is funding in the scheme development for safety measures. So the budget is not a concern as I sit here. We need to, the next stage, taking one example, Camborne to Cambridge, is a planning inquiry that will commence in September, and I'm sure safety and other issues will be explored during that inquiry. If we get through the inquiry, there will then be further stages of assessment of safety in terms of what is required before we get anywhere near construction. So I think the point is very well made, and please be assured that we are taking it incredibly seriously.
I think, given that people have lost their lives and we've got grieving families, we have to take this matter very seriously. And I think it would be helpful if a report could come to the next meeting which formalises and just formally records all the processes and procedures that you go through to ensure that, let's say, the recommendations made in the reports are then embedded in the processes that we will follow to ensure the safety of the busways. Would that be satisfactory, Councillor Williams?
Yes, I think that would be good for us to all have sight of, and the lessons learned from from tragic circumstances, but we are here scrutinising busways and proposals.
Indeed we are.
So it's very important that with what's happened, that it's taken fully into our consideration when scrutinising the boards at decision making. And so yes, a document on something that we can go over on that, I think is really important, and also for public confidence that we are taking into consideration their safety.
Very well put, thank you. Councillor Osborne, did you want to say something else?
Thank you, Chair. Mine kind of follows a little bit on from Councillor Williams, just on the safety aspect to say I'm pleased to see that the flooding issues on the St Ives Greenway are being looked at, because again, that's another safety issue where people are taking desire lines and coming close to the track. So I do think it's important that a resolution is come to you as quickly as possible to ensure safety.
Bear Park.
Yes, I was just going to ask if, as some of these projects come through from design and planning phase into delivery, whether we could have some more delivery-related metrics. And one metric I was thinking of, specifically related to the greenways, was number of kilometres of greenway constructed. Just whether that's a possibility.
I think that's noted. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Can we move on then to the next work stream, which is skills, page 42. Anybody got any questions on that? Heather.
Thank you. One thing as we go through, and I do appreciate that there's a lot of sort of jargon and abbreviations and all sorts of things in local government, but I do take a little bit of exception to this knowledge intensive and non-knowledge intensive breakdown. I find that to me it's not necessarily clear, because knowledge intensive, what is knowledge? It's a broad scheme of things. I do not have the knowledge that a plumber has to install a bathroom, or a tiler, who I would say tilers have the best geometric and math skills going. It's just vocational as opposed to academic. And so I would ask, I appreciate it may not be our terminology, and I will hear from officers, but if we can actually look at the language that we are using in our reports, because I think tradesmen are very knowledgeable. It's vocational and academic where I think we're trying to make a distinction. But it does come across to some as a derogatory way, because it sort of implies that one has knowledge and one doesn't, or one's not as knowledgeable in their field. So that was the first thing. The other thing was about what support there is we're trying to encourage more people into agriculture, and whether that's something that is being looked at as part of this work. We are Greater Cambridge, that's City and South Cambridgeshire, and agriculture is a big part of our local economy. It's also something that contributes a lot to the tourism in relation to farming in the area, and we know that sort of recruitment of labour and qualified workers is very tricky for that sector at the moment. Just wondering if there's inclusion of that.
And do you have an interest in agriculture?
My husband works on farms, yes, but I have done a little bit of roguing, Chair, but there's no financial interest for myself, no. Nor do I own a farm.
Nevertheless, it is an
or
interest.
anything else.
It does count as an interest, so you now declared it. Thank you.
In that case, everybody here involved in science, we're paying millions of pounds for people to have busways to and from. Well, no, Chair, I don't think that was because of something my husband does. We all have an interest in agriculture, actually, because it feeds us.
Yeah.
Knowledge intensive is not meant to be pejorative. It's a useful way of actually tracking, monitoring the development of the cluster. That's my understanding.
Sorry, Chair, I think you're being asked to move the mic slightly closer to you by colleagues.
Haven't switched it on. Sorry, can you hear me? I'm very sorry. I'll bring it right, very close to me like that. Is that better? Beg your pardon. It's very nice of you to want to listen to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So the point around knowledge intensive, so I don't necessarily disagree, but that it's a sort of a nationally adopted term used by the organisation that we get this information from. But we'll, you know, I'll speak to them and ask for their view around it and see if these discussions are happening in other areas, perhaps. The point around agriculture and perhaps specifically more broadly around a range of sectors, what we're going to do with the new lot of work around skills is to make sure that we're reporting regularly on which sectors our various traineeships and apprenticeships are coming through so we'll start to provide that information as a kind of breakdown. It might take a while because I've only just started, but hopefully we'll start to get a picture of what you're looking for through that process.
So can we now move on to the smart work stream, please? Sorry, any questions? Claire Raskin.
An element of statement and an element of question. So it is a good report. We've got a lot of work going on in that area. There are a few things that always rise to the top of my thinking, and those are traffic lights, collaborations on the signals. So we've got all these signals, sensors working together. Just some of the tables include, these will come out at a later stage. It'll be quite nice to just hear whether the 10 traffic lights between one junction and the next are actually being coordinated anytime soon.
So we did some work with a company called Viva City looking at 4 junctions in the city. We have the results of those trials, and we're working with Signals colleagues on how we could potentially roll that technology out in appropriate areas when the budget's available. We're about to kick off another piece of work looking at bus priority that uses similar sensors to the Vivacity sensors. So recognizing when a bus is approaching and then deciding whether or not to give it priority based on real-time information. So is it ahead of schedule, is it on schedule, or is it behind schedule? So as far as we're aware, there is nowhere else in the country that uses real-time information when deciding on kind of bus priority. So we have procured that piece of work, and we should be installing the hardware in August and then starting the kind of trials in September.
Thank you very much. You have some results to report from those 4 junctions. Can you just give us a verbal update?
We did. We circulated a briefing note to the Assembly and Board, which sets out the findings of those reports. I'm happy to recirculate that. I think what we found was that compared to Mover, which is the current technology that's used on a number of junctions, we were only seeing a 1% improvement in traffic flow, but we were seeing a significant improvement in pedestrian dwell time. So it was actually improving the pedestrian experience in those areas.
Councillor Williams.
Just following the same logic, Chair, I just wonder if you want to investigate who uses that junction, because they may have an interest, they use it regularly, if that's the depth that we're going into.
So can we go on to the next work stream, please? Just housing, yeah. Any questions arising from that? This relates to the rural exception sites when they exceed the planned programme in the local plan. No questions arising? Okay. So I just want to then thank you for all the work that you've done on these work streams, and we'll move on to the next agenda item. So I'm going to manage this item and that this is the Waterbeach Railway Station. I'm going to manage this item as follows. We'll have the public question, the response to the public question, or questions, plural. We'll then receive the officer representation by Thomas Fitzpatrick, and we will then, the Joint Assembly will then debate the matter. Just to remind us all, the Joint Assembly has been invited to consider proposals to be presented to the GCP Executive Board, and in particular to comment on the following matters. So the full business case for the railway station, plans to dedicate authority to the interim director of the GCP to enter into required contracts for construction of the station and associated works, the proposed closure process that's been taken forward by Network Rail for the existing station and the update on timescales, and progress on the integration of Waterbeach schemes, including the route for phase 2 of the Waterbeach Greenway, which will link to the station. So I have first then Nigel Seamarks, who's going to speak to us via Teams. Is he? Do we have Nigel?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, well, thank you, Nigel. Could you please introduce your question? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time today. So the first question was on the Greenway, and I attended a meeting with the GCP in the Greenway lady with Paul Beer Park, who's present with you today. And one of the concerns we had was the use of Way Lane, and would it actually meet LTN 1/20, because nobody thinks it will do. So we was wondering if the GCP had a blue sky idea, a radical idea of how they're going to use Way Lane to connect the train station to the Greenway. So that's question 1. Question 2 is it's becoming quite frustrating that part of the railway delivery before the first train is to have a safe crossing on Bannold Road on the High Street Denny End location. And from previous experience as a parish councillor, it normally takes 2 to 3 years to consult, design and build a crossing. So I've asked the GCP on a number of occasions and just get blankness. And so because this condition is before the first train, time is running out. So I really, really want to understand how the safe crossing is coming along, and when the GCP are actually going to put something out for consultation. And question 3, which is quite a hot topic on safety, is I attended a Network Rail meeting regarding the current railway station and the barriers. And the barriers are changing at Waterbeach because of the volume of near misses. So when the train station moves, the new barriers that will be potential near misses, which is Bottisham Crossing, that's what it's officially known as, then become a safety issue. And National Rail said at the meeting that's up to the GCP to make sure that you've done all the safety work because it's your station. And the other thing that they alluded to was that they were having conversations with the GCP about turnaround at Waterbeach for trains to turn at Waterbeach to go back to Cambridge, and that there'd been some loose discussions about the current station, probably less than 30% chance of staying open. So it'd be good to understand if the GCP had actually had any conversations on that. So good to have an update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nigel. And Thomas will respond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of the questions related to the greenways, the improvements as referred to in the question are being brought forward by the two developers, Urban and Civic and Waterbeach Development Company, as part of their planning approvals for the Waterbeach New Town. The schemes are therefore a matter for them and the statutory agencies. The Greater Cambridge Partnership will continue to work with both developers and the Parish Council to feed into the designs as they are progressed. The GCP undertook a consultation in October of 2023 on the Waterbeach Greenway, which commences at the moment on Cambridge Road and links to the now completed Cowley Road. The consultation responses from Waterbeach residents were mostly in favour of the scheme. The GCP will continue in its work to develop the section from Cambridge Road to Ely Road Junction and will continue to engage with developers and the Parish Council to ensure that the route and improvements being brought forward by the developers tie in. In terms of the questions related to the station, the provision of a safer pedestrian crossing at the junction of Denny End Road and Banold Road is a planning condition. The design therefore has to be submitted to the planning authority, who then consult Cambridgeshire County Council as the Highways Authority before it is approved. In terms of level crossings, the GCP have carried out risk assessments and appraisals of all level crossings adjacent to the new and existing station. That's Bottisham Road, Burgess Drove, Waterbeach and Banold's level crossings. This exercise demonstrated that the proposed station works resulted in no change to the risk profile of 3 of the level crossings and a reduction in risk for the Waterbeach level crossing, which is adjacent to the existing station. The GCP is not aware of any proposals for a turn-back service at the new Waterbeach station. The timetable and service patterns for the station will be determined by Network Rail in collaboration with the relevant train operating companies. And then just in terms of the closure of the existing station, that will follow the statutory process set out in the Railways Act 2005 and is a matter for the Department for Transport and the rail industry, and it'll be the Department for Transport who carries out that consultation on the closure. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. So we now have Peter Wakefield, Vice Chair of Rail Future East Anglia. Could you come up to the public speaker seat and ask your question? This is like Magnus Magnusson. That is a bit. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Waterbeach Station opened on July the 30th in 1845, 180 years ago shortly, serving its surrounding communities in that time. Since 2017, there have been plans to close the station and serve Waterbeach, Landbeach and Horningsea with a new station 2 kilometres to the north, better to serve the new town. In 2017, Rail Future East Anglia agreed with all aspects of the proposal because the station was very run down, could only deal with 4-coach trains and had no car park. The new station was to be, we were told by the developer, state-of-the-art, as well as serving another approximately 30,000 people in the new town. 8 years have passed. The current station has been considerably upgraded, and although in need of some remedial work, it is fit for purpose compared to its predecessor, with nigh on 400,000 entries and exits recorded annually, 7% more this year, we're told. The government has in the meantime, the government has formalised the growth of Cambridge, culminating in the formation of the Cambridge Growth Company. And, of course, there's been considerable opposition to the closure from the residents of Waterbeach to their station. So we maintain it's not sensible to make, we've changed our mind, it's not sensible to make the access to the railway harder for thousands of people when we, talking about the railway, need to make it easier. So I hope you will have time to read the paper we have prepared, and hopefully it will be circulated eventually to you all, this document, which further explains how both stations could be kept to enable the growth of our city region to be sustainable to us all in that city region. So my question, at long last, in view of the changes that have taken place since the original plans were drawn up in 2017, please consider this paper and enter into consultation with the Cambridge Growth Company and all others concerned to ensure that both Waterbeach stations are retained and adapted to become really useful into the future, with capacity to serve all our fast-growing communities. And finally, please note the cost of the inevitable public inquiry into a closure. It's very high, and that outcome is by no means foregone. It's very important to remember that no station has been closed for many, many years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thomas, can you now...
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, fundamentally, similar response to the last question, in that the closure of the existing station will follow the statutory process in the Railways Act 2005. There will be a consultation led by the Department for Transport, and it will be a decision by the Department for Transport and the rail industry on the closure. Thank you.
So we have the next question from Linda Worth, who is the County Access and Bridles Ways Officer for the Cambridgeshire British Horse Society. Welcome, Linda. You have 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Please ask your question.
Right, good afternoon. Waterbeach has a large and vibrant equestrian community. The Greenway provision must include access for equestrians. This committee agreed that all maps and plans should include the rights-of-way network. Inclusion of rights-of-way ensures clarity of the negative impact on users and highlights potential for positive impact. This has not happened, e.g. at Figure 1. Please can the committee reconfirm rights-of-way should be included on all maps and plans produced by the GCP. Banold Drove is a byway and links to Cross Drove, important routes for equestrians, given there is no interlinking bridleway network in the area. Any upgrades to these routes need to provide for equestrians. Any bridge provision needs to be available for all byway users, that includes carriage drivers, by the way, to avoid severance of the route. Otherwise, Cross Drove will be isolated and inaccessible from Banold Drove. Please can the committee ensure that these requirements are included in the project design? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thomas, can you please respond? Please take your speaker off here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So Figure 1 is a schematic. On detailed plans for consultation, we have committed to including public rights-of-way plans and will do so. The scope of works for Banold Drove are relatively limited, with plans for resurfacing and stud lighting in line with the approved planning application. And there is no bridge proposed. Access between Banold Drove and Cross Drove will not be affected by the proposed station works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One of our regular questioners, Josh Grantham. Welcome, Josh. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
In October last year, CamCycle challenged the outline business case for Waterbeach Station. We argued that it was fundamentally flawed, as it was premised on the need to grow the car park without justifying the demand, whilst at the same time it failed to recognise the unique opportunity that Waterbeach Station offers to integrate active travel with rail use. We asked the Joint Assembly, many of whom are here today, whether this is the rail station of the future. We wonder how many of you have looked at what is being proposed and asked yourself that question. Unfortunately, the full business case is no better. It still fails to demonstrate the need for the 200-space car park or acknowledge the huge potential for active travel. Meanwhile, the 2019 RLW station plans, inherited by the GCP, continue to be progressed towards construction. The station is uninspiring but functional. However, the car park is unjustified, unwise, and represents poor value for money. It effectively says, "Welcome to Waterbeach, please drive here." CamCycle campaigned vigorously against the Station Square proposals at Cambridge Station, and with good reason. That decision has locked in generations of car dependency and poor quality public space at the gateway to our city. inadequate public transport integration and no active travel provision, not to mention the congestion-related issues it creates in the wider area. When will we learn that building roads and subsidising car parks, of which there is still talk about this one being free, do nothing to benefit the health of our region's communities? Cambridge South is being built without a car park. Why aren't we being more ambitious here? Can the GCP please explain where the demand for an extra 91 car parking spaces is drawn from in the 2050 scenario between the new station location and the existing station location? Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And Thomas will answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The design of the new Waterbeach station has progressed in line with the approved planning permission, which includes provision for a 200-space car park. The station design supports active travel modes by incorporating safe, wide and well-lit pedestrian routes, connections to cycling infrastructure and greenways, and high-capacity secure cycle parking facilities. The car park demand forecast outlined in the full business case is based on average occupancy levels. The inclusion of 200 spaces ensures the station can accommodate peak demand during periods of the highest commuter usage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that ends the questions. And for just to look at before we receive the officer's presentation, I just want to draw attention to paragraph 2.4 of the report, which is page 72 of the agenda pack. This explains that the full version of the business case is confidential and exempt from publication under the provisions of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as it contains information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. If members wish to discuss this commercially sensitive information that has been redacted from the published version, the meeting will need to go in private session. So, if anybody wishing to do this, please let me know, or at some point during the debate. Are we happy to proceed without having to go in private session? I'm taking that as yes. In that case, then, Thomas, can you please introduce the report, and then the Assembly will debate the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is the third time that this paper has come to the Joint Assembly and indeed will be going to the Executive Board. In June 2022, the Executive Board agreed to take the scheme on into the programme based on the approved planning application. We then did a lot of technical work to develop the designs, including getting technical sign-offs from Network Rail. And in November 2024, the Executive Board agreed the outline business case for the project and asked officers to undertake a competitive tender process for a design and build contractor to construct the scheme. We have carried out that process and we have now identified a preferred bidder. We are therefore asking the board to agree the full business case, which demonstrates a benefit cost ratio of 3.65. So for every pound you put in, economically £3.65 comes back. To delegate authority to officers to enter the construction contract and to note the closure process, which is from section 2.7 of the report. Lastly, I just want to confirm on the station that the funding and budget remains as they were, with £20 million worth of GCP funding and 23.35 million coming through Homes England first and then back through the developer. This paper also updates on a potential route on the Greenway to link the agreed Waterbeach Greenway on Cardyke Road, Cambridge Road, with the station. We've suggested this could be designated as the northern part of the Waterbeach Greenway. This is shown on the figure above paragraph 2.14. The majority, if not all, of this would be delivered through Section 106 works and developer work from the developers of the new town. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
So, questions, please. Okay, got Heather.
Thank you. And there was a question earlier on.
Did you want to ask a question? Sorry.
There was a question earlier on about if anyone's looked at the plans. I'm going to show you Planning Committee spent a long time debating it and we did look thoroughly at the plans. I I do feel, Councillor might be surprised at this, that I agree with them. It was very underwhelming. I'll have to double check, because I've sat on many planning applications since, Chair, but I don't believe I supported it at the time. Partially not to do with the car park, but we were given assurances at Planning Committee that the funding was in place. It was a big thing, because what we don't want to do is have this is a relocation rather than just setting up a new station. And we were told that at Planning Committee, we were told no public funds were going to be needed, and then literally a very short period later, I then sit at the GCP and we've got them wanting money, taxpayers' money. I asked back then about a clawback for any uplift and value uplift of from the developers, because I think that's really important that we don't just write, sort of a blank check, and we are over-programmed, as I said earlier. So to do this means we are not funding other things. And this was never in our programme originally, if members remember. So we had assurances, they were shattered within moments. And so I'm not from this report, and I have looked through, but I won't refer to the other report, Chair, to try and keep this in public session. But I can't see anything, and unless it's in a technical language about clawback for if there is uplift or if the site is more profitable than foreseen. I appreciate there are some clawbacks in relation to housing and transport already on the site, but I think it's very important, and I think Mr Huntington will probably know more than I. He is like our strategic planner. For those that don't know, he's Mr Northstowe, Mr Waterbeach at South Cam, so we do regularly call upon his support.
Thank you for that. We have to be, we're sort of running around the boundary of what is in public and private session at this moment, I think. But can anybody say something that keeps this within the public domain that's suitable? Done so.
So there is a viability kind of assessment and viability uplift within the kind of agreed planning approval for the outline planning application for Waterbeach Newtown, which means that should the viability assessment say there's feedback where money goes into the Highways Authority for transport funds, in effect, should the viability assessment demonstrate that that's needed.
Yeah, but can you just explain that in plain English? Michael, have a go at it.
Thank you, Chair. So the eastern half of the new town, the RLW developer, as part of the concerns of the western half of the new town about not enough money coming through viability for transport, the eastern half has a viability review mechanism for any additional money that comes forward goes to the transport pot without any identifiable project, but just goes to transport to the county council. Those periods of time may be some time in the future, as in over 10 years' time away.
So, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I understand the clawback positions for because that was before we were even asked the GCP to hand over money, and as a committee we put those. I declared that interest earlier, that we put those clawbacks in because they are long-term projects and the viability now could be very different and the property prices, etc. But this is why are we giving this money rather than loaning this money, with a view that we do this often in local government. We appreciate that we might not get to a point of having that money returned, but in principle, should we be bailing them out? And I don't think we should. They gave assurances that they had the funds in place. That's not the taxpayer's fault.
You're meaning the applicant said that?
Yes.
If I may interject here. So this has been, I think Thomas said at the start, we've considered this, you've considered this 3 times. And the first time you considered it, the question of finance was considered. And there were a lot of opinions around the concern and holding one's nose in terms of the grant that was going into this. The decision that you ended up advising on and the executive board then followed was very much the need in terms of the strategic planning context, the context of the local planning authority in South Cambridgeshire in particular, and the need to deliver the houses in this location. And that as a result of that, there was a need for some form of public subsidy. And there's public subsidy. If Stephen Kelly was here, he's got a great quote. Stephen's always got a great quote about the amount of public subsidy that's going into pretty much all of the major developments, not just across Cambridgeshire, but way beyond. So that consideration was looked at some time ago in terms of the money going in. The viability assessment does mean that when the houses are delivered, if there is an uplift, then that goes to, in this case, the County Council, and the County Council will then determine how it would apportion those funds should they be forthcoming.
So, in simple terms, the station was required before the new houses could be built. And therefore, this was a matter of accelerating the housing and ensuring that there was a sustainable transport option in place for all new residents when they came. And therefore, we have to take into account the public and environmental value and when we weigh up these decisions. And of course, the Treasury will benefit handsomely from the construction process, the sales process, and the resale process as these houses reach the market, and also the benefit of the social housing that will be brought with them as well. So we look at it in the round, and I think that's basically has informed the decision that's been made in previous meetings of the board.
Just mention social housing. Actually, that's another area where the local council is going to have to pick up the slack. Our policy is 40%. They only delivered 30%.
I think your policy is 30%. Ours is
40%, Chair.
Cambs, is it?
I am aware of our policy on planning committee.
Okay, I thought there was a discrepancy between the two. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so any more questions in response to the presentation? Paul, you wanted to speak?
Yes, so as Ward Councillor for Waterbeach over the years, I've probably had more emails from residents about this topic than any other topic since I became a councillor. So there are 4 things I wanted to cover. I'll just cover off a couple and then stop for officers to respond, if that's okay. Okay. So the first 2 just relating to the car park and also facilities at the new station. So I do think the car park is too big. The modelling shows that the need is 174 car parking spaces by 2050. There will be another larger car park for this station. This car park was the one for the village. The developer always had in mind that they would develop a separate car park unconnected to this one for the new town and anybody coming in off the A10. So I do think it is far too big. This essentially will be a kind of meanwhile car park, and it will be serving the village, Cottenham and Horningsea, essentially. Kind of related to this is a topic that I and my ward colleague Anna Bradnam brought up at the last meeting was facilities at the new town. So what the developer originally brought forward is very basic. And, we think that for a town, which will eventually be 30,000 people, plus the 5,000 or 6,000 currently in Waterbeach, it needs to be much more. We need proper facilities at this station. But I understand that we can't provide those straight away, and it wouldn't make sense. We need some kind of meanwhile in planning terms, I think, facilities, probably fairly basic facilities. But we also need to be safeguarding land for perhaps a travel hub in the long term, because this is also where the Waterbeach busway is going to come in as well. It will also terminate there. So one possibility is that we steal a bit of the land for the car park and we use it for safeguarding land for what will be a travel hub in the future. So I'm asking whether that is a possibility, whether we could consider that. And I will stop there.
That's such a good question, Paul. Let's have the answer to that first. Thank you.
So as I said in my response to the public question, kind of the 200 spaces was part of the planning application, and it would require us to have discussions with planning colleagues, obviously sat right next to me, in terms of looking at any variations to that. We're happy to commit to having those conversations and seeing if there are options, for example, phasing of the car park or something along those lines. But there is a planning application which says what we should be looking to deliver, which we need to stick to within the planning rules. Just with regards to facilities, so sections 2.5 and 2.6 of the report set out the approach that we're taking with facilities, and in terms of looking at it from an immediate perspective and asking when we appoint a contractor to look at what the options are for amenities when the station opens, and then the fact that in the long term the station will form part of the wider economic quarter, which the developer will be expected to kind of master plan with planners. So, I mean, happy to take the points away that you've set out, Councillor Bear Park, but those are kind of the current position at the moment.
So, from what I heard just then, is that there will be discussions about an amendment to the planning application, planning consent. They're not rigid planning consents, they can be amended by condition. So this is a possibility, and the officers will explore that, and also to consider the matter of future facilities. So yes, I think just a general message is please go away and consider the future proofing of this station along lines that Councillor Airport has made representations for. Thank you. Number 2, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I wanted to comment on design, and I appreciate there is there's an existing planning application which has been approved, but it is very basic. This will be the gateway to one of the UK's most important new towns. And I think, it needs to have that sense when people arrive. It is also right on the edge of the Fens, in a similar way to the existing station. The existing station, one of the things the existing station has, although it is relatively basic, it doesn't have any facilities, is from the northbound platform, you have views over the river and over the Fens when you're waiting for your train. On the southbound platform, you have views over what was the grounds of Waterbeach Abbey, which is, to my eyes, both of those views are lovely views, and it is a pleasure to stand there waiting for a train. I wonder whether we could incorporate that sort of thing and other possible design measures. So that's an example. I'm not saying that we should do this, but just making sure that we manage to have that feeling of openness and incorporating the kind of the visibility and the access and the connection to the Fens in the design. So I suppose my questions around this are, will there be an architect and landscape designers involved in the design? And what opportunity will there be to amend the design to improve it from what is very basic at the moment?
Thank you, Thomas.
Yes, there are 2 conditions in the planning application already, which are conditions 3 and 4. So condition 3 requires material samples for all external surfaces of buildings and structures to be kind of signed off by the planning authority. And condition 4 requires a landscaping scheme to be provided to the planning authority to be signed off before the scheme can go ahead. And clearly those designs would need to adhere to things like the local plan policies around making sure it's part and integrated into the area. So there are the contractor, when we appoint them, will have a designer who is their designer, and they will be tasked with getting the approval of those conditions, and we're happy to set up meetings with local members as they start to develop those designs. Thank you.
Number 3, please.
Yeah, I was just going to add, thank you very much. Network Rail have run design competitions to encourage good and innovative design of smaller stations recently. So Network Rail, who will eventually take on this station, obviously have an interest in good quality design. And I think, although the conditions you mentioned are kind of internal to the scheme, I think we need to consider the context, which hopefully the local plan policies will be taken into consideration. This is my last one. It is relating to conditions of planning, and it does relate to Nigel Seamark's question. I suppose it's quite a basic question, really. Who is responsible for discharging conditions of planning related to the highways, Cody Road, Bannell Drove, and also the shuttle service that is in the condition of planning as well, and what the details of that will be for connecting the old and new stations? I wasn't sure whether it's the GCP or whether it's the County Council, or whether it's another body.
So for any conditions, we submit details to the planning authority, and it's for them to then consult with relevant organisations. Obviously, in this situation, they would be the Highways Authority that they would consult with on things like travel plans.
Thank you very much, that's clear. And I would just ask if the parish council could be consulted as well, on particularly on the highways conditions.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you. It was just on this because it's South Cambs planning. So discharge of conditions, yes, we we notify parishes, and that's the difference. So I think you'll need to pass something at South Cambs, and I'm happy to help with that to make sure that it's a consultation as full as it can be, because there are different consultations depending on the application. And as Mike's nodding, discharge conditions, it's normally a notification as opposed to a consultation, but not enough people understand that they can respond if they've been notified, but it's not the sort of same as if a fresh planning application's come through. But normally on the bigger sites, then we sort of make some exceptions. Isn't that right, Mike?
That's correct, yes.
Mike, clearly there's public interest in these matters, and therefore the scope to widen the normal consultation process.
Chair, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. So you did threaten us with 4. You've conflated them to 3. Okay, thank you. Christian is next. Oh, it's Claire. Both of you. Okay, one at a time then. Okay.
We have some good questions, Chair, and including Heather's in particular. I thought we need to just remember that we have decided in past meetings that we need this part of the programme, and we've supported the case, but I thoroughly agree with the let's go back and remember why we did this. I've also got a further question, which is how we pay, who pays for anything that might be an overspend. We know that fixed price contracts are wonderful, but there's always a reason that there may be an overspend. So I'd just like to pause on that one. We had a very good paper that we were circulated from Rail Future, and I think the 2 stations don't quite make sense to me yet. We've got to allow ourselves to do some basic functional work that then can be embellished and taken forward in the future. I was particularly convinced by the full business case, page 10, which shows the catchment areas for the 2 stations, and that to me makes it quite clear that the village one as well, we shouldn't necessarily demolish it, but it doesn't look like a clear case to me at the moment for keeping that one. And the car parking I was particularly interested in as well, because I do remember that we did have a just off the A10 parking hub at one point, travel hub, which would seem a really good idea, because we must accept that we're not going to have active travel to this station. We are not going to have people who could have driven into the centre of Ely or could have driven into the centre of Cambridge to park their cars down the funnel of the A10. It will be more convenient for them to park at Waterbeach and catch the train to London, for example, from there. So I think I can see the rationale in the full business case, and I support it, but it is still a big step to be taking to put taxpayers' money into something that it would seem there may be a clawback for the future. I appreciate we've been through that several times. We've argued the case on both sides, but it is a worthwhile question to have up at this point again. But again, just saying, we do have to allow ourselves to do some basic work. If we get a functional station, I shall be delighted. If we get one that's embellished, then that would be lovely, but I wouldn't necessarily want taxpayers' money to be spent doing the embellishments. Thank you.
So the big change in terms of the funding arrangements are that Homes England are now going to put in a loan, and it's been extended because it covers other costs associated with the station, and they are also going to bear the risk. So my understanding is is 20 million flat. No cost overrun?
When we deliver projects, we aim for no cost overrun, so that's what we are aspiring to do. I do not anticipate there being a cost overrun. This is going to haunt me. I do not anticipate there being a cost overrun on this scheme.
Okay. Councillor Clough, did you hear that? Okay, wait. Yes, so the interim director said he doesn't work to cost overruns. Keep it within cost. That's his job. That it hangs on the balance of him keeping everything within those terms. But Homes England, my understanding is Homes England will bear the risk. We're not sharing risk, is that right?
We are bearing the risk.
We're bearing
Homes
risk.
England are putting in a significant amount of money, including money for a haul road, which, if you recall from previous conversations, keeps the construction traffic out of the village. And that took quite a bit of conversation with them.
Heather?
When it come through, when we discussed it last time, any extras, because essentially that is the money that the developer or whoever can put in, whatever is extra, that's what was the agreement at the time. The GCP would top it up, but also to bear in mind as well that part of the planning is that as much construction, supplies, etc., comes in by rail. And I know that was going to be...
We've read the planning, yeah.
Yes. Well, we were going for sustainability and actually getting freight off the A14 and what have you, and not having the lorries come through for the intrusion of the residents is a really important part of it. But that's going to be a thing to manage.
Okay. Christian.
Thank you. 3 questions. The first one relates to whether by approving this case, picking up on an earlier question, we do anything apart from the fact that we're approving moving ahead on a new station that influences the decision on the closure of the second station. So what's the link by taking the decision we're doing today to the earlier question? I appreciate there's going to be a public inquiry into that led by Network Rail, but is there any implications of the decision we take today on that? The second one is, as I understand it, the full business case here, we're approving the full business case. GCP is also taking on the delivery responsibility, so it's not just in some ways the money we're putting in terms of the 20 million, it's actually also the capacity to deliver. I can't quite recollect where we took that versus the delivery of Network Rail. If someone could clarify, just remind me of that, that would be really good, because actually we've delivered greenways and roads. A station is going to be a new thing for us. And the third is just, when do we hope it's going to be open?
I mean, in terms of the first question, which is about whether or not this decision impacts the outcome for the existing station, the only way that it impacts it is that Network Rail / Department for Transport will therefore go ahead with that consultation, because clearly, we'll be delivering a new station. So that's the only way it impacts it. In terms of the assessment of the consultation, they will assess the consultation as they always would. Just moving on to kind of delivery responsibility. So included in kind of the cost is our employment of very specialist consultants and contractors. Network Rail have not, to my knowledge, ever wanted to deliver this station specifically themselves. It's always been seen as kind of a third-party delivery, and for that reason, we've employed consultants and contractors who are very used to working with Network Rail to smooth the process as best as possible. And then in terms of when the scheme will be open, our construction is due to end at the end of 2027. In terms of the actual opening of the station, that is a matter for Network Rail themselves, and they will look at it in terms of timetabling and such like to define when they see it suitable. And of course, they will have their own tests and such like they will want to do to ensure the station is fully compliant before they open it. Thank you.
Christopher.
Thank you. Forgive me, just slightly off-beam, but it picks up on a theme that Councillor Bear-Part picked up. It relates to John Grantham's question earlier. Railway stations, by definition, need to be transport interchange points and not just serving the people who live within a few miles of it. All of our work here is about helping people move around freely without clogging the system up. So I'd just appreciate 30 seconds on how the additional car park that we've had referenced twice here this afternoon, how is that happening and how does that connect to this? Because that's very relevant to the question about how big the car park on the site needs to be to serve the community. So the other one is really important because this needs to be able to draw people to go there rather than try and drive into Cambridge. Thank you.
I think this relates to the mobility hub proposition. So,
Well, there are. Thank you, Chair. If I may answer, there are 3 car parks in this scheme. There's a car park, what we call the village car park, the car park that Councillor Bear Park talked about. There's a car park immediately to the north which will serve the town, and then we've got the mobility hub, the park and ride scheme, haven't we, on the A10. So the 3 car parks all serving different people, and the thing that we don't quite yet know is the design of the car park in the town, how that's going to be designed, because it's part of the town centre. But it's not really going to serve anyone outside of the town. It's going to be essentially just serving the 30,000 people that are going to live there. And so the question is, how big does that car park need to be? And it goes back to comments earlier about how are you going to get there? Are you going to drive 3 kilometres to the car park and park your car, or would you cycle there?
Forgive me if I get that point entirely, but we need other people to be able to access the station as well, for which the park and ride car park is the obvious place we want people to go. How will people be able to get from that park and ride car park to the railway station? Because we want them to leave their cars at the park and ride site, not drive into the new town.
Chair, if I may. So this is, we're constructing an entirely new town. And what we're trying to do is put some of the building blocks in place. The decision today around the rail station will construct a rail station. We know that just in GCP land, we've got a busway, a park and ride site, and a greenway as part of that, enhancing that connectivity. And the answer to your short question is the bus needs to connect the two. And that's the work that we're doing in another area. But also we need to work with Mike and colleagues with the local planning authority in terms of what that new town looks and feels like anyway. And I think it would be remiss of us if we think the answer is the answer that's before us today, because it will need to change. We will need to evolve. Our schemes will need to evolve to reflect the work of the local planning authority and their understanding of what that new town looks and feels like. And I think Mike's just outlined one example, a car park in the middle. Do you have a car park in the middle? Do you need a car park in the middle? And I think that, I'm sure that question will continue to be asked by local planning colleagues. And we, and the county council and the health authority and everybody else will need to continue to evolve our plans to reflect that. But your point about the connectivity, I think, is incredibly important. And to some extent, it comes back to the questions that Paul and colleagues have asked around facilities. And there needs to be another go at this. There's another wave. We know we'll be involved in a further wave with the busway and the travel hub. There will certainly be other waves in terms of what this infrastructure looks and feels like as we go forward. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I just say one other thing? I would describe this as a series of jigsaw pieces that we're all trying to put together. Not all at the same time, but they'll all get there eventually. They've all just got different time frames to deliver, and it's a long time. It's a long time project. It's a 25-year project. Thank you, Chair.
And that lands substantive weight to Councillor Bear Park's point about future-proofing the space that the GCP is going to be dealing with now, so that we have flexibility in the future to, as I say, change with changing circumstances. So, Councillor.
Thank you. I was just going to say that's the point of the planning, is the fact that we have outline and then we have reserved matters. So things will start to come forward in more detail, but there is a master plan for the site which we sort of approved, which has that scaling in. But I think it's also important to remember that the planning application, which the GCP is sort of helped fund to complete, is the relocation of a train station. it's not a new station. The planning application is for relocation. Appreciate there'll be processes in relation to the old train station, but I think that's an important distinction of what we're, you know, the whole point of it is a relocated station.
The Bear Park?
Yeah, just one more thanks. Since the question of opening and timing of the station came up, I suppose I only recently understood that Network Rail will be responsible for deciding when the new station opens and the old station closes. It was a point I made at the last assembly, which was the relationship between when the houses come along, or the development of that eastern part of the new town, and the opening of the station, because it would be a pity if that new station opened and we had to wait several years for any houses to be built, while everybody in Waterbeach Village is disadvantaged by having to go, or most people, I won't say everybody, that's not true, most people are disadvantaged by having to go further to the station. So we have the station out in the middle of nowhere, which is, you know, designed to serve the locus of the new town, but it hasn't been built out yet.
Welcome to the world of atomised infrastructure planning and delivery, is all I can say. And it's way out of sync, and it has been for 25 years or more. So they just can't plan out that, can't plan for everything happening simultaneously. Let's just get a bit realistic about the situation we're in. So I think we've come to the end of the discussion and debate. I'm sensing that there is support for the full business case. We're adding some advice to take that to the executive board. I think in particular the relationship of keeping the car parking area flexible for future investment in mobility hubs, and also further consultation on discharge of relevant conditions that members of the Assembly have referred to. Councillor Bear Park, do you want to add to my summary?
Yes, I want to, you're moving on to the recommendations, I guess. I want to make a comment specifically on one of those. Can I make it now?
You can, of course.
So just on D, noting the progress of the integration of the Waterbeach schemes, including route for the phase 2 of the Waterbeach Greenway, I don't think that's correct. The phase 2 of the Waterbeach Greenway has never been approved by the board. So I don't know what that was meant to say, whether it was meant to say something else.
Yeah, we'll strike it, agree. We'll take that out.
Which bit are you taking out?
The section that relates to the Greenway.
Just D, all of D.
Yeah.
All of D.
D.
All of D is struck out. Okay, that's the mystery how it got there then. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I then just refer you then to the recommendation? It's in relation on page 67, A, B and C. Are we agreed? I think seeing consensus there, so thank you for that. So,
Can I say, on the wording of the recommendation, Chair, I don't think it's quite right in relation to A, because the recommendation suggests that we are the decision-making authority.
we're not decision-making.
I know we're not.
Well, I
but
said that at
this
the
is-
beginning of the meeting. I'm just absolutely clear. We're
Yeah.
making recommendations to the GCP board.
Could
Okay.
finish
Well,
my
okay.
observation, Chair. I think it would, if it said agree to recommend to the board, then that would be more reflective of what the decision we're actually taking, and whether that could be in drafting of recommendations would be a better form of wording, and we can look at that going forward.
It is absolutely clear that these are recommendations and they'll be recorded in the minutes, Councillor Williams, in that manner. Okay. Let's move on to item 10, which is the a break of 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, okay. Sorry about this. Audience, people, it's a long protracted process. Five minutes, please. Thank you. Welcome back. We now move on to agenda item 10, Barton Greenway, full business case. This is on pages 79 to 86 of your agenda pack. I'll just rehearse how we're going to manage this item. So first we'll have the public questions and the responses to those questions. We'll have representation from a partner body representative, and there's also a written question has been submitted. That's you, Councillor Clough, will be able to be invited to speak. And there's a letter as well to be read out from a third person. You'll have then responses to that. We will then receive the officer presentation from Thomas Fitzpatrick, and then we will have the debate. The matter for recommendation to the GCP, or advice to the GCP board, will be the full business case for the Barton Greenway, progress to date on planning and acquisition rights over the land, and plans to dedicate authority to the interim director of the GCP to enter into the required construction contracts to build the scheme. So, following that proposal, can I first invite Andy Martin, as he's present, to thank you for your patience, Andy. You now have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to ask a question today. I'm sort of wearing two hats because I'm a parish councillor on Barton Parish Council. And I'll give you a bit of advice. Do not become a parish councillor on Barton Parish Council who's in charge of transport, travel and traffic. And another bit of advice is to follow the strategy of openness, planning the open. Don't go to the Balkans, which it means don't go to Barton, and stay in Rome, which means don't go to Barton. We've had very good communication with the GCP, so I'm pleased about that. Up until we started works in Barton, and we're in the process of everybody realising and asking questions as what is going on. Here we've never been consulted. Even though there's been 2 consultations and public drop-in meetings, so it's the usual people who don't bother reading anything, don't come along. So my question relates to the next phases of the programme which you're going to discuss today, which is going from the end of New Road into Cambridge by the M11 bridge. There's a lot of concern about what's happening at the end of New Road, and also what is happening over the M11 bridge. So the biggest risk that most residents in Barton perceive is that crossing of the slip road at the M11 and going over a bridge with a very narrow footpath currently and a very low fence. So there's a lot of people with children that go into Cambridge, a lot of active travellers that do use that route. There's also a lot of active travellers that go across to Grantchester as well. There's a group of houses on the other side of the A603 that go into Barton, and there's children that go across from the village to Comberton and the Grantchester to Comberton. So in general, we approve the schemes, but my question is relating to when are these next phases going to occur? Is there a public consultation around that? Is there going to be details that people can question and challenge? So that's simply what I came here today to ask. Plan in the open and don't go to the Balkans or Barton. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very full frank on the role of being a parish council. Thomas, can you answer the questions, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So in response to the question received, the GCP can confirm that the section which is kind of going across the M11, will be upgraded and made safer. We are working closely with National Highways to ensure that our designs meet their requirements. Our design add traffic lights on the M11 slip for pedestrian crossing, pedestrian and cycling crossing, widen the footway cycleway on the bridge, and raises the bridge parapet height. Thank you.
I think that was game, set, match, wasn't it? And so I think it was game, set, match in terms of the requests that you have put forward, nearly. Consultation, public consultation was what the request was.
So there's currently a planning application in for the whole of the Barton scheme, which obviously has its own statutory consultation, but we will also work with local members and parishes as the finer details come forward. Thank you.
So, Linda Wharf, please. Not here. Linda Wharf.
Okay, thank you. The BHS supports the principle of inclusive off-road safe greenways for non-motorised vehicles. However, a detailed objection to the planning application for the Barton Greenway has been submitted by the BHS. Greenway projects delivered to date have placed equestrians in significant danger. The Linton and Sawston Greenways are prime examples. Both areas, like Barton, have large equestrian communities whose safety and well-being were ignored, and non-highway compliant designs were constructed despite input from equestrian representatives since the beginning of the GCP back in 2017. The Barton scheme as it stands will also create significant avoidable danger for equestrians. Objections include the high number of equestrians in the area have been ignored. It does not define how and when the replacement grass bridleways are to be delivered and available. It ignores the danger being created for equestrians' safe connectivity to the rights of way. It provides for leisure access to the rights of way for cyclists and pedestrians, but not equestrians. Highly challengeable claims for improvements for equestrians in the ATE route checker. Cambridgeshire Highways and Transport Committee have acknowledged that outside central urban areas, leisure use of the greenways needs to be taken into account to meet scheme's objectives, not just commuting and utility journeys. Active Travel England has also recognised this need and are reviewing their guidance. This project is not for a central urban area. Equestrians have always and continue to support safe access for all vulnerable road users and non-motorised users. The objection is not about reducing any safe access proposed for pedestrians and cyclists, only about ensuring inclusivity of all the groups. Members being asked to approve this project, please can members recognise the missed opportunities and dangers created for equestrians within this project and make changes to correct these omissions and dangers before giving their approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. So the Barton Greenway has been designed to, as far as practicable, separate user groups out and to provide an alternative path and surface without altering the existing bridleway provision. Where this is not possible due to land constraints, a separate soft surface grass strip has been provided in line with the County Council's active travel design guidance. As well as the planning application, the route has gone through a detailed change of surface application process within the County Council, whereby members of the Local Access Forum have had a chance to comment on the proposals. The British Horse Society comments have been noted, considered and responded to throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you. So we then move on to Josh Grantham. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. In a world of complex governance and competing priorities, it's easy to lose sight of why we're building the greenways and the values that should guide the decision making. CouncilCycle is not exempt from this. We know it can be challenging to tread the line between raising concerns and offering support. Like you, we want to see infrastructure that delivers transformations to people's lives and journeys, and we want to help make it better. In section 2.1, we note the change of surface to a golden gravel finish. To be absolutely clear here, that's not like a loose gravel surface that you might typically imagine when the word gravel is raised. It's because that would be unacceptable for daily cycling use. The proposal is for an asphalt surface, which is appropriate for all-round year use, but with a gravel kind of embedded into that top layer. We have long raised concerns about the lack of clarity in the Greenway Design Guide regarding surfacing, which risks inconsistency across the network. And whilst we understand how this decision may have been reached for Barton Greenway, we question whether it delivers value. While golden gravel might have an aesthetic appeal, it does not improve active travel outcomes and it adds cost. This matters. Every pound for active travel has been hard fought. A gravel finish doesn't make a route safer, more inclusive or more used. It just makes it look nicer. At the same time, the Barton Greenway has committed to increasing the biodiversity through its largely agricultural setting, which will provide betterment. Can we afford the extra cost of surfacing with no active travel benefits, particularly when the cost is such a barrier to delivering other much-needed infrastructure? Roads and car parks spread across the countryside without any debate about their visual impacts, but when we build infrastructure for walking or cycling, gravel is needed to protect rural character. Why the double standard? I recently rode 400 kilometres across the Netherlands on exclusively high-quality infrastructure. I didn't see any golden gravel, but I did see people of all ages and abilities enjoying more healthy and active lives than we see in our communities, and that's enabled in no small part by excellent cycling facilities. Does the GCP think that cyclists were suitably represented during the surface change application on the local access forum?
Thank you very much, Josh. Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. So golden gravel surfacing has been chosen as the finished surface choice in line with recommendations within the Green and Blue infrastructure strategy that came before this group and the Executive Board. It also provides additional grip to the surface during wet and winter months. The budget has been set with the incorporation of this surfacing. As well as the planning application, the Barton Greenway has gone through a detailed change of surface application process within the County Council, whereby members of the Local Access Forum have had a chance to comment on the proposals. It is for the County Council to decide who is on the Local Access Forum. Thank you.
Councillor Hugh Clough, could you now come and speak, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Specifically, I would like to talk about the bulk path within this business case. Firstly, I would like members, I believe the slide's going to be put up, members to refer to 3 specific pages of the full business case document. So on the screen there, we have figure 1-2 on page 11, called Workplace Control Zones, page 11 of 86. On that diagram, or that map rather, you can see the route of the bulk path. So if you can see where you've got the G of Grantchester, it starts to the west of that and runs north and then curls around and then finishes just at Grantchester Road. Now, so that is the route of the bulk path. So if anybody's not sure, then please raise their hand. Effectively, it's like the tongue of a snake, if you imagine that the route of the the Greenway looks like the mouth of a snake. So the second question, so when that's ready to move on to the next one, so this is just a table. On the base of that table, there are AMAT, existing daily demand data. At the bottom of that, you have the demand data for the bulk path. And then if you move on to the next page, at the top, you also see the bulk path data. So the AMT data, which basically means number of trips per day, predicts an increase of 1 pedestrian and 1 cyclist per day. The bulk path is a much-loved walking path on the edge of Cambridge with a natural feel and countryside views. The route is a complete outlier to the Barton Greenway and will be never used for active travel to work. It should never have been included in the scheme. CamCycle in their comments about the Haslingfield Greenway, recognised that the bulk path would never be an active travel route. Surely this route should be assessed for the economic viability of only 2 extra journeys per day. Please can the members now stop and recognise that the bulk path should now be removed from the Barton Greenway in order to protect this precious route and bridleway from being ruined forever. Thank you.
Wilmar, is the letter relevant to the points that Councillor Clough has just made?
Yes, Chair. I would just like to read out a short statement from Councillor Peter Rees, who is the County Councillor for Newnham, who apologises that he's unable to be here this afternoon, but he would like to express his enthusiastic endorsement of Councillor Clough's suggestion to remove the bulk path from the Barton Greenway plans. He supports this correction to save the bulk from being paved over. The bulk is a cherished and beautiful capillary of the countryside, which we need to save for existing residents and future generations.
Thank you. Thomas, are you going to respond, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As set out in the paper, the alignment for the Greenway has been subject to multiple consultations and public engagements, and there have been 3 different decisions already taken on this scheme by the board, including the sign-off of the outline business case in March 2023, which followed agreement of the alignment in 2020. The bulk path route provides multiple benefits. It's off-road, first of all, and as part of that overall rural link, it offers links across to areas such as Haslingfield, Grantchester and Hawkston. It also provides part of the wider network, and the aspiration of the Greenways is to give people choices, and this is what the bulk path does. In terms of the business case, this is a technical point about kind of web tag and what we have to do. So in effect, we have to take existing demand, which is what we have done in this situation, and then put a percentage increase on that. Now, clearly, the existing demand on the bulk path at this point in time is relatively low, and therefore when we put that percentage, which is the same percentage as we put on all of the Greenway elements on, it only results in a small increase. That is a constraint of the business case system that we have to utilise. We would expect the numbers to be substantially higher, and for that reason there are other kind of tests within business case, including a Go Dutch scenario, which would provide further significant benefits. Overall, strategically, the scheme still achieves 1.7 in terms of benefit cost ratio. And then lastly, the whole scheme is subject to a live planning application. And as kind of already highlighted, the surface is alongside the bulk path, not on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So can you now introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, thank you. So this paper is to agree the full business case for the scheme following the agreement of the outline business case, which was the decision was taken in March of 2023. As set out in the paper, the plans have been submitted to the Planning Authority and are currently under consideration, and we're hoping for a planning committee in the autumn. And we've also made substantial and strong progress on all of the required kind of land rights that we need for the scheme, and we're hopeful of completing them all by the end of this year. The overall business case, BCR for the scheme, as I've already mentioned, is at 1.7, which demonstrates value for money. And then just, I wanted to highlight section 2.10, which talks about the changes from prelim to detailed design, including the introduction of golden gravel, which has already been highlighted in the questions. Should the Executive Board agree to move forward with the scheme, we would be in construction in 2026. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Who would like to ask questions? Councillor Bick.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to understand more about the question that's been raised about the bulk path. Thomas responded in very measured terms, but could I ask more directly, what would be the consequences of the bulk path not being developed as part of this scheme? Because that seems to me more the spirit of what's been raised, and I'm an agnostic on this up till now, and would quite like that answer before I could really have a view. What would this scheme be like? What would be missing? Who would be whose needs would not be met if the bulk path wasn't part of it?
I think from the perspective of the route through to Cambridge would still exist because you would go along Barton Road and across the M11. However, for some users, it's arguable that that would not be as comfortable as taking a route that is off-road, because although we are introducing things like pedestrianised crossings and things like that, you know, for users such as school children and such like, they may not be comfortable going along a road in that form. Therefore, the route that we're offering is an alternative. It also provides links, so the longer link to the Haslingfield Greenway directly, which would provide us with links further onto Hawkston. So in effect, it forms part of the kind of spider's web network of the area. So if you were to take that out, you would basically miss connecting to other areas. Thank you.
Because I do remember, I think, some of the answers to questions in relation to the Haslingfield Greenway, and those who contended that the bulk path was an alternative to cyclists going through Grantchester. And at that point, the wisdom of officers, which I certainly shared, was that the bulk path was in no way a suitable alternative to for the bulk of likely users. And I'm just wondering how that actually relates to the answer you just gave about its role as part of the Barton Greenway.
I mean, fundamentally, it's about origin and destination and where different trips are going, and, you know, ultimately providing choice. So if you were coming from Barton Village and going to Haslingfield, you would use that rural route across, which we, you know, if you weren't doing the bulk path, then you wouldn't do that section either, in effect. So a lot of it is about the network and, you know, and providing options. And that is, just to go back over, you know, that is what has been engaged on and consulted on multiple times in the past, and has therefore been approved as a result of the feedback during those engagements and consultations.
Williams, please.
Thank you. So a few points on this. I'd like to start with the viewpoint that I think one of the few things we've been able to get consensus on through the GCP is support for the greenways in principle, and the theory of it and what it seems to be trying to support. There's one clarification, Chair, that I think would be helpful, because in the responses that have been given, I've heard two things, one of which is about the bulk path, and the other thing is that it's beside the bulk path. So some clarification on that comment, because I think that might blur things slightly for some members. But also, and I will just declare, I do not have a horse. I do not ride horses. I've become an extension of my husband. My husband does not have a horse today. When I say that someone from, let's face it, probably the most rural part of South Cambridgeshire, actually equestrian hobbies, sports, is a big part of our rural economy. It does put in a lot of money into the coffers, as it were. So I do think it's something we need to take consideration, and also the health benefits that come from riding for many people. And actually, when we're looking at these villages, rural isolation is a huge thing. And actually, for some people, joining a pony club and those sorts of things are a great way for that sort of integration things to happen. Not everybody has their own estate to ride on. You know, the people affected are not those people, and it seemed very sort of oh, it's, you know, a very elite thing. It's really, really not. Lots of children do it for those health benefits, and they're the ones most affected when it comes to the impacts of what we're doing here. And it seems like we go round in this circle. I still don't understand why we can't just be inclusive with our greenways for horse riders. Yeah, I appreciate those that ride are not going to want to ride all the way into Cambridge, but those sort of links, and we are taking away bridleways when we put and using bridleways a lot through these schemes. So can we have some more understanding as to why we've had obviously an objection for the British Horse Society, which is disappointing to see, but why we don't seem to be able to resolve this issue? Because surely all of us want to be as inclusive as possible, and when we are spending this money, have it spent in a way that benefits the most amount of people. When it comes to this surface, it was said about aesthetics and car parks. Trust me, I am equally concerned, whether it's a car park, a greenway or anything, about how it affects the countryside. Because we only have what we have, and once countryside is developed, you don't get it back. We stop creating land many, many thousands of years ago. We've only got what we've got. So I do think anything that improves the aesthetics to make sure the openness of the countryside is protected. And actually I would say that works for city residents as well. This isn't just about South Cambs residents. It's a nice experience for those leisurely bike rides and what have you to be able to do. So I think that is a bonus, that it is more aesthetically pleasing. What I don't understand is why we seem to be in this constant conflict with equestrians. It's a really important part of a lot of people's lives.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. Thomas, can you please?
Just in terms of the route being alongside the bike path, so in line with many bridleways and things like that we were seen as impacting, we've tried our very best to retain what is there and then build alongside it. And that is kind of what we're doing elsewhere, and indeed what we're doing on the bike path. So we're building alongside it, but it's the same alignment, as it were, of the bike path. In terms of kind of working with equestrians, the greenways do introduce new provision for equestrians. For example, there's a new bridleway on the Comberton Greenway, and there are other examples. And we are actually meeting with the BHS tomorrow to talk to them about kind of some of their concerns and trying to work through them. So we are taking a proactive approach, we hope, to working with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. You mentioned one scheme. I think there was one scheme where we didn't have this conflict. You're right. But it just in principle, the greenways are meant to be for non-motorised users. And that's pedestrians, that's cyclists. Why can we not have our greenways open to horse riders as well? We've had surface discussed at times. There's no different to the surface on the greenway than it is if you're on the road. And the sandwiching effect that this can have is actually really dangerous for horse riders. And you referenced earlier on, sorry, not yourself, Chair, but officers, about replacement grass bridleway. What's the sort of timescales on that when it's usable? How long will it take to achieve that? Because that's the other thing. You need certainty for the animal welfare. You can't, if you're on a horse, you can't get to a certain point and do a 5 or 6 mile detour. You've got the welfare of the animal to consider, and you need that confidence to know where you're going, and those small little hacks are really important.
Thomas.
So just on the point on when the grass surface will be usable, our contractors will have a design specification that they will work to try and make it as usable as quickly as possible, and we will do that, based on advice, even published advice by the BHS, along with lots of others. Just in terms of, sorry, are there any other specific points? There's a few things.
It was about the Greenway scheme in general. Why can't we just have a policy that horse riders are included? So we just need just need a horse on the thing as well as the bike and the pedestrian. Why can't we do that? It just seems to be the constant problem. Why don't we just have a policy where we will be inclusive of everybody.
I've been here 8 years now. Didn't have a grey hair when I started. And we've had this conversation, I think, repeatedly over the period. And the thing is, we sometimes we use language that's quite emotive, that we're discriminating or we're making things worse or we're making things dangerous. And I think we just need to try and have a sort of calm conversation around, we're not making things worse. We're not making things worse, and we've given assurances previously that we won't do that, and that where we can accommodate, and if there are particular examples, then we will sit down and we'll go through them. But we've previously, when we've had this conversation before, we've said we're not going to make things worse, and where we can, we will make things better. But the greenways, you know, the whole concept, I think that the chair outlined at the start, the rationale behind the city deal is delivery of the local plan, trying to manage the growth. We can't boil the ocean. We can't fix every problem out there. That's not our role. That's the role of a wide plethora of organisations. And so what we're trying to do with the greenways is, and you mentioned inclusive, really important actually. That's one of the things the ball path does. It gives people an alternative for they may not want to use the rest of the Barton Greenway. So we're trying to be inclusive. We're trying to balance the needs that we've got, and we will accommodate equestrians where we can. And we've said that repeatedly over the years. What we can't do, and I wish I could, I genuinely wish I could wave my magic wand and come up with that magic carpet that responds to everybody's travel and transport concerns. But I can't, and you know I can't. I can't sit here and say we're going to be able to meet every expectation that's placed upon us.
Yeah, what I'm trying to identify is what is the harm of having the greenways access. It's not about even structural changes or doing anything differently. What is the harm in allowing equestrians to use those greenways? And that's the thing that I have to say, when I've sat here, I've never quite understood what the harm is in having it for all three types of users. You know, especially as if you come to sort of my neck of the woods, we don't even have footpaths, right? And we have everybody on those, and you know, touch wood, all seems to go okay. But what is the harm in having greenways, just that little blue sign, having a horse on it as well?
And we are actively exploring that, and the lawyers are involved, and we are promoting that very principle. The lawyers are involved on it.
Can we get different lawyers, Chair?
That has always been the advice I've given colleagues, is if a lawyer isn't giving you the answer you want, get a different lawyer. It's a good principle, but let's wait and see what this first lot come up with. I think it's been an interesting discussion and debate, and I think I'd like to know more about the scope and the extent of the issues that remain unresolved, and I think we need to be briefed on that at some point, because this is a recurring issue. It's a campaign, and but the campaign does not actually specify what the detailed issues are. So, you know, in the round. So I think you've had assurance from Peter that the team are doing their level best, and it's their intention to do the level best, because as has been pointed out, these greenways are for all users. So let's try and make this into a happier issue than it is at the moment, more controversial one. So thank you for that. So I've got Claire next.
Thank you, Chair. I am a big supporter of greenways, but I cannot see the case for the bulk path, so I'm just joining the voices on that one. I am looking, I know the area very well, I've stared at the maps endlessly, I've looked at Haslingfield, where would I go to? So for any of the journey starts, the place that I would want to go to does not go on the bulk path, unless there's another reason that I don't understand. So if I were going from Barton or Haslingfield to Cambridge, I would go up the A6 through the Barton Road. That absolutely needs improving. If I were going from Grantchester or Barton or Haslingfield to Trumpington or the biomedical campus, I would go east-west. And the road that's nicely marked purple as a quiet road here is not a quiet road. The reason I would walk or go in the car that way is usually because I view that as quite a dangerous road. It's narrow, twisty, etc. So that would need some traffic calming or something, speed limits about that. If I were going from Grantchester, which I often do, to Cambridge, I would drive along the obvious road, Broadway and Grantchester Road. That would be fine. I wouldn't cycle or walk along that road if I could possibly help it. So I would turn to the river and just go along Grantchester Meadows. And that's the way I think most Grantchester people would go. I might be wrong. I would not take a very hard left decision to go along a path through the middle of fields, which are away from roads. I just cannot see many cases where I would use the bulk path. I've walked it, not frequently, but I know it. It looks genius when you see it on a map because it looks like a brilliant alternative to Grantchester Road, but it isn't the one that would be used in any case that I can think of. So it is rare for me to disagree with something in the officer's report, particularly if I'm led to believe I might have agreed with it in the past. I think I might have missed the meetings where I've maybe agreed with it in the past. I cannot see the case for spending money on bulk path. It's fine, it's lovely as it is. I'm not trying to save it. If we needed it, I would advocate using it, but I can't see the case for it. I love Josh's comment about how much money it's going to cost to make a golden pathway, but it does look so much nicer. So I would like to know how much money it would cost to do that. And I'm very interested in, of course, in supporting equestrians as well as other non-motorised transport. So anything that we can do that is a reasonable cost and practical, I support. I would love to ban these fast, high-speed scooters that zip along our pathways and try to run me over all the time. There are things we can't do. If we have more cyclists going along places, we need to try and make them behave, but it is still difficult not to make things feel more dangerous. So in general, I'm fully supportive of the business case, apart from page 10, where I just go, why are we doing that? Don't understand. Thank you.
Very much, Claire. I think Peter's biting at the
I mean, Chair, if I may, as an officer, we love nothing more than guidance. So I suppose my question then is to the wider assembly in terms of a view on the bulk path that we could then, or we could report on your behalf to the executive board.
Do we have advocates on the assembly for the bulk path?
You need more nuance than what you're able to be given here to weigh up. The bulk doesn't sit in isolation, so if you want that round table, the bulk can have a conversation, but you can't do it right now.
Thank you for that, Josh. Assembly, you know the context. You've heard it from Josh. You've heard it from Thomas. It's a strange route, but I don't want to influence your opinion on it. Thank you.
So just, I was going to say roughly what Josh said, that it sounds to me like, whereas there's, it probably sounds like there's support for the rest of the business case, but probably members of the Assembly need to see more before they could affirm support for the bulk path component of it. Yeah.
It does worry me slightly, and I'm very sorry. I was intending to be quiet. It's my first session, and, you know, I don't want to, it does worry me when we get, I mean, we've sat and we've looked at this network for such a long time, and we have said, the most important thing that we have said, we're not transport planners, we're not designers, we're not, and I don't have anywhere near the knowledge of the area that Claire has. But, you know, I've just spent a lovely week driving around motorways in Italy, and, you know, that has evolved as a very interesting network of roads where sometimes you wonder why somebody's built like a link between two random bits of motorway in the middle of nowhere. And I can promise you at some point, even if you can't see it, you're going to discover why it's there. Now, I don't know that you want to destroy the case that you've got now. We're quite at an advanced stage and go back and relitigate a mile of something that we might or might not want to do. I don't mind reviewing this bit if people want to review this bit. I don't want to make it something that slows down the delivery. I mean, I sat at my very first meeting of the executive board with those two 14-year-old people asking me, will we be retired by the time we can cycle on the damn thing? And here we are just debating whether this is the bulk path we want it or not. Can we just do whatever it is that lays this Barton Greenway sooner? Because otherwise, you know, I feel like we're indulging things that aren't necessarily the priority for certain people.
I just wanted to sort of propose a potential way forward on this. And I do take into account Lisa's points, and I think that's sometimes where we get with lots of projects. You feel so invested because you've been on it for so long, but actually the whole point of it coming to us several times is to have the opportunity to actually stop, sense check, is everything right? Otherwise, we might as well just look at it once and then it's job done. I think what would be sensible is that the bulk path does seem like at this stage an unnecessary requirement for the Greenway itself, and doesn't seem very logical. And we should not be carving up any green space or countryside unless it is necessary, in my view. So can we suggest that the majority of the Assembly in the recommendation is supportive of the Greenway in principle, but is not happy with the bulk path, and ask the board to only support the bulk path if there is such a degree of evidence that means it cannot function without?
Sorry, so we haven't reached that point yet, Councillor Williams, because we haven't heard from all members of the Assembly. So you're jumping the gun somewhat, but we have heard you. So Christopher, you want to express your view, please, and then Christian.
Thank you. It's not necessarily a complete view, but I'm going back to what I understood from previous meetings was the justification for the bulk path, which was providing an alternative that Grantchester itself was not keen on the cycle route coming through the centre of the village, probably for the comments that Claire has just restated. So I had always understood that it was to provide a safer off-route path rather than funneling people from Haslingfield and others through the middle of Grantchester and to give an off-road route. If that is still the case, then, and we're not going to get rid of the bulk path, we're putting it next to it, then I would support it. But if we're saying that's not the case, then but that's how I understood it in the past. It was there partly driven by Grantchester and safety through the middle of that village.
Christian.
To express my view, I wasn't, when the question came up on the bulk path, I wasn't convinced by the officer's answer of the necessity, and we've had a very powerful point from Claire. So I don't think, to picking up from Josh's comment, that I've got sufficient evidence in front of me. We can try and debate it now to make feel strongly on whether this is right to include or not in this. But I think doubt has been raised. I wouldn't like to see a delay in the business case. I wouldn't think it could. Wouldn't want to see it come back here. I would be comfortable with the recommendation going to the executive committee that there has been questions raised amongst this group around the bulk path, and we haven't had a chance to fully evaluate the evidence, and ask the executive committee to have the chance to have that discussion and debate with both sides put convincingly by officers, because it's obviously a complex debate that I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of on this point. So I would, it's sort of building on you, but I can't say at this point that this committee doesn't support it. I think this committee, from my point of view, has got doubts.
So can I just test the water with you, Paul, Nitan and Annika? Should we just take it in turn so we've heard from everybody? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we do. The numbers don't look very good. I mean, but Thomas has kind of given some explanation for that. given this has come up again, I wonder whether it's worth reviewing the consultation comments, perhaps, about this particular aspect of the path. I mean, we have had this come to the Assembly before with those numbers. And I think the last time it came, I did go over there and I did check out the route. And I suppose the one thing for me is it does provide an alternative to those who don't want to cycle on the road or don't want to cycle beside a busy road, because I think it's the A603, the one. Yeah, it's a very busy road. It's not pleasant. I mean, the reason people in Waterbeach go down the river instead of along the A10, even though it's further, it's a lot more pleasant.
Nitin?
As I said, I'm happy that we don't delay the decision making and include as many of the comments that we've put together in objections to some of the questions around why we need it, but then make a decision, because I think, you said something about kids who carry on and it won't happen for them to be riding the bikes.
Annika?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what everyone has said. I don't want any delays on the majority of it, but there are questions raised about this aspect of it.
Well, I think that sums it up well, and that will be what we'll take back to the executive board. Strictly no delay, but there is some doubt, and let's have a look at the evidence to justify this, including the consultation comments. And that will be conveyed to the board, and that's the function of the Assembly, of course. So thank you all for raising this matter. Okay, so Christian.
Are you taking comments? Well, because I had a broader comment. We have not related to the bulk path. Which was just a question for officers around. It's great to see this come forward. I note the full business case came to this. Is the first. It says in here that this is the first full business case to come through for one of the greenways to celebrate that success. It is slightly, like one of our schemes, delayed compared to our. And we've all expressed the things. What have we learned in terms of the reasons for the delays, and how does that potentially impact the delivery of the remaining of the greenways, and how much confidence we can have in the planning of those and the deadlines that we've got? And that's quite natural. We learn more. You're learning more about the challenges of delivering them, and we've just potentially introduced another one. So I'm celebrating this and saying how does that impact our thoughts on the deliverability of the remaining schemes?
So I think Heather summed it up earlier on in that everybody agrees with the principle. We all agree with the principle. We should have a network of greenways. That'll be fantastic. And then you get into the detail. And the thing is, the detail's really important to residents, to communities, to businesses, to elected members, and we've got to go through that. There's no sort of short-circuiting of that process. So Thomas and Jonathan and the wider Greenways team are doing their damnedest to go through all of that stuff. They are trying to please everybody. They genuinely, life is better if we can please everybody. But sometimes you've got to take these challenges and you've got to take these compromises. There are particular processes we've got to do as part of a city deal. So the assessment, the full business case, very few places in the country get to undertake what you've done and what the team have done in terms of developing this. Normally that's undertaken by the Department for Transport. So that has been delegated, given away, probably wrestled out of their sweaty mitts was the obvious, in terms of taking that out of central government and back to local decision making. But it does mean you've got to weigh these options up. And we have to come back to you at various different stages. And from an officer perspective, you're just, frankly hoping everybody agrees and we can move to the next stage. But quite rightly, you'll be saying, well, even if we've considered that before, we might want another look at it, which is what you've suggested on the book, and we will reflect that to the executive board. So all of these challenges we've factored in. Now, the one thing we did do with Greenways is to say we want to deliver them as soon as we reasonably can, for a number of reasons: public expectation, cost management, all of those things. But actually, we do have more time thanks to the work of Niamh and the team around the Gateway Review. We've now got a sort of 5-6 year period. We don't want to use that, but we've now got that certainty that allows us to continue to do that work with the communities. And I think we need to come back to you on a wider conversation around Greenway's delivery timetable. I think we'll look at a workshop in the summer and then come back to you more formally in the autumn, springtime. So I think absolutely right, we're always going to take these learning, but for me it really is, you go from the principle to the detail, and guess what? People have lots of comments on the detail.
That was a lecture in the price of democracy. Thank you very much. So we do have to just end the business, which was essentially the advice and recommendations that we make to the executive board. So this is about the full business case of Barton Greenway. I'm sensing that that is supported, with the exception of the bulk, which is a separate matter. We've just confirmed what we want to say about that. Progress to date on planning and acquisition of the rights over the land. We've heard that the outline planning application's been approved. There's a new planning application to be submitted, and the land acquisition should be completed by December. And then the third element was the plan to dedicate authority to the interim director of the Greater Cambridge Partnership to enter into the agreed construction contracts to build the scheme. I think the point was being well made. Let's get on with it. Let's make sure that the next generation have the benefit of these greenways before they get too old. So this is the incredible job that Tim used to do, was to define a consensus when you were all sat there like statues, and I never knew how he could do that. And so I became a very active person at this moment, and yes, nodding vigorously to give him some hope of getting so yes, thank you very much, thank you. So thank you for everybody that's attended today, but particularly the people who've submitted questions, and the officers, of course, and anybody who's listening. The date of the next meeting, to note, which is 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 16th of October. And there are dates for the meetings in 2026. They are set out in the agenda. So that concludes the business, and thank you so much.